Okay, welcome everyone to Atheism Club. We're hosting this room in collaboration with the Street Epistemology Club. Please, everyone, follow. Just look them up under Anthony, Reid's, and David's bios, or you can just look it up on the magnifying glass, the search engine. So some members of the Atheism Club, we've been reflecting on redefining the approach and the direction in which we want to take the club. So a lot of us expressed a desire to shift from, this hardcore aggressive atheism to critical thinking and creating a learning space in which our community can explore life ideas. For example, we wanted to explore scientific explanations for the natural world, and other scientific explanations on how the world functions. We want to understand human nature. There's been some talk on rights activism with possible speakers from Freedom from Religion Foundation. We also want to create a safe space for people to share and question their belief systems and not get scared away by aggressive atheists. So this collaboration couldn't come at a better time. We hope we can further collaborate with the Street Epistemology Club so we can have better and more productive conversations. We hope this room to go for 2 hours. Once the 2 hours are done, we might see if usually some of these rooms get extended, but it will depend on whether people can stay in. So first of all, we'll hear from the speakers to tell us a little bit about street epistemology. We'll invite people who want to question their beliefs afterwards. Then we'll have a bit of a Q&A so that people can come up on stage and ask questions. You can also DM me if you have any comment or questions while the thing is going, if you have an urgency to communicate. Then we will invite people who would like to try street epistemology onto the stage. And finally, we'll have a Q&A and a goodbye. So I'll introduce our speakers. We have Anthony Magnabosco, who's a skeptic and atheist from San Antonio, Texas. He's been practicing and promoting street epistemology since 2013. He's had several hundred chats, many of them on camera, and they've been uploaded to his YouTube channel. So you guys can go on YouTube and look him up. He's tackled several claims like gods, ghosts, karma, law of attraction, a variety of social and political topics. Anthony's been interviewed on countless podcasts, many of which are listed. He's also founder of the current executive director of the nonprofit organization Street Epistemology International, and he's given dozens of talks and workshops on street epistemology at conferences and events domestically and internationally. David Venegas, he's a musician and an outdoor adventurer who's interested in exposing the street epistemology methods to as many people as possible. He was raised by Southern Baptist missionaries in Mexico City and currently identifies as agnostic, which means he needs a definition for a God in order to provide us stance on belief. Otherwise, it's meaningless.
It's agnostic with an I.
Excellent. Thanks for correcting, because I corrected it myself. David started a private Facebook group called Sound Epistemology, which provides a safe space for people to discuss why people hold strong-held beliefs. The group invites members to learn about street epistemology, cognitive biases, logical fallacies, heuristics, and other ways the mind can trick you. Reid Nicewander, he's the president of Street Epistemology International. He's a filmmaker, and he's got a YouTube channel as well where he has done several sessions with people questioning their belief systems. If you want to expand on that, I don't have much more information, but if any of you want to expand on your bios and information about yourselves, please go ahead.
Cool. Thanks for the introduction. Really appreciate it. No, you covered everything about myself, and I'm really excited to be here to talk about street epistemology to your group with Reid and David. Thanks for having us.
Welcome.
Yeah, same here for me. Excited to be here. Appreciate the invite.
I'm super excited about this. I'm thrilled to have Anthony and Reid hang out with us today. I think you covered it pretty well. I'm still kind of learning how to navigate Clubhouse, so forgive me if I'm not too much help with the technical stuff. But yeah, I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks Alfonso for setting this up.
Yeah, so I want to give a special thanks to David, who made this all possible by connecting us with David and Reid and Anthony. So it's thanks to you that we're having this little session. We're going to have an introduction on what street epistemology is and personal experiences that our speakers have had. So I'm going to go in PTR order. Pull to refresh for any newbies on Clubhouse. You just slide your finger down and you'll see any updates with profile pictures or the order in which speakers are set on the stage. So we'll go with Anthony first. Take it away.
Yeah, so I think this is probably a great topic for your group, because if this is a gathering place where you are having discussions about religion or other topics where it tends to get heated and maybe you find yourself arguing or getting into debate mode, then this approach that we're about to introduce you to, if you're unfamiliar with it, I urge you to consider looking at it as an alternate tool in your toolbox that you can use in various situations. This isn't intended to replace anything per se, but give you another tool for engaging with people about their views. Somebody mentioned the word aggressive, that maybe the way that we often go about having these conversations can be very aggressive, but street epistemology, I wouldn't say is aggressive, but maybe the word we're looking for is impactful. Like, do we want to have aggressive conversations, or do we want to have impactful ones? My sense is that even the people who like to argue and debate more than likely also want to have an impactful conversation or interaction with somebody. So that might be like a first question to ask ourselves is like, why are we engaging with people in the first place? What are we hoping to get out of it? Because that, I think, opens ourselves up to taking a look at the ways that we're engaging with people and maybe consider this approach that we're talking about here today, which is the street epistemology approach. Is silent. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
I didn't get that last bit. I thought you were. Can you repeat that last bit?
The last bit. What was the last thing that you heard? Because my last bit was 30 seconds ago.
Sorry. Yeah. Were you asking me a question, or were you just passing the mic?
I'd like to read to see if he had anything else he wanted to add. Are you guys having trouble hearing me? Because it might be
no, not at all.
I can hear you fine. Okay. Did you want to pass it to me to fill in some more stuff about SE, or I think you covered the basis.
I'm just trying to paint a broader picture for people here who might be new to SE. Like, why would you be interested in taking on another tool, perhaps? Like, maybe you're fine arguing, debating, and giving people facts. Maybe you've had some success with that, but what we're hoping to do today here is to introduce you to this other method of street epistemology, where we generally ask people questions and listen and resist the urge to correct people when they say something that might be an obvious error. Because the idea with SE is to help people reflect on how they concluded that what they think is true is true. So we're kind of the mindset that if we have a hostile space where people are guarded and they're worried about being misrepresented or crushed in a debate, then you're not really getting the true representation of what it is they believe. And if we can shine a really bright, powerful light on the person's belief process, that in and of itself can be helpful in encouraging them to make an adjustment if they think that their confidence in their claim is misplaced in some way. That's ultimately what we're trying to do with SE. It can be a little tough, I have to say, because sometimes people will say obvious things that are wrong, and you want, like, our instinct is to correct them. And you actually can do that too, by the way. You just have to probably do it in a way that is conducive to the discussion, that it doesn't actually sink it. It's so easy to sink a conversation, especially when it's about a sensitive topic.
Yeah, so a couple of weeks, well, last weekend we had a bit of a critique on the club because we found we were indulging too much in telling people what they believe and what they think rather than listening to them. And so we gave, a bit of a street epistemological twist to the rooms. And it wasn't easy because you need to be patient and you need to take your time. And some of the comments were, well, is this an interview or are you, having a room on atheism?
Yeah, and sometimes the SE interactions can be they're sometimes too tame for people's likes, or their attention span. They want to see an argument. They want to see people making their strongest positions. But if your goal is to help a person take another look at their confidence that they've assigned to a claim that they think is true, and encourage them to reflect on that, then the way that we normally engage with people about these sensitive topics is problematic. So let me just explain maybe what we typically do in SE. Here's a sort of typical trajectory of a conversation. And it doesn't always go this way. And I'm only mentioning this just to kind of lay it out. You don't have to follow this in a rote order either. But essentially, one of the first things you should probably do is ask yourself what your goals are. If I go to this rally and I flag down a person who I disagree with, and they're willing to talk with me, what would I call a success? What would I call a failure? And then maybe ask yourself, what do I need to disclose to them before I engage with them? Do I need to warn them, give them a little bit of a heads up as far as what I'm doing, or can I just jump right into it? And then after we've sort of worked out some of the niceties, then we try to get a sense of what claims specifically are you making here? What is the belief that you hold? And perhaps can we get an idea of how sure you are that that's true on some scale? I've seen scales from 1 to 7 and 1 to 10 and 0 to 100. That's a nice to have. You don't have to have that, but it's a good starting point if you can get an assessment of where a person thinks that they themselves are. And then we begin the questioning process where we try to ask for the biggest reason that contributes to their level of confidence and make sure that that's the reason. Once we have the reason established, we want to get into the methodology, and that's the epistemologies. How did you determine that that's a good reason for thinking that that's true to a high degree of confidence? And all throughout, this is a conversation that's largely based on us asking questions and intently listening to what we're hearing back so we can represent it back to them in a very clear way. If you've ever heard of the concept of steel manning, we do that in SE. We're big proponents of steel manning. I want to give your strongest argument back to you in the clearest way possible so that you can then decide if you're okay with that. That's a real big part of SE, is that when we're engaging with somebody, we're not asking them to convince us that what they think is true is true. We want to understand how they became convinced that what they think is true is true. And that takes the pressure off of the questioner. I don't even know anything about the topic. Take me through your steps. Help me understand how you became convinced. Would you be willing to do that with me? And a lot of people are excitedly willing to talk about the beliefs that they have because they're so sure that they're true. And if you can set your ego aside and your desire to win or dominate somebody and simply understand and yet challenge them with good questions, then this technique, I think, would be really good for you.
I like how you say, we're putting up a mirror to the other person and letting them see themselves and their ideas clearly laid out there in a way that they can tell how they relate to each other. Is that really a good connection? Is that really a good reason? Do I have the best evidence for this thing? Stuff like that. It's nice to see.
Bringing clarity to a person's view is helpful in encouraging them to reflect on it. So if they don't know exactly what they're reflecting on, then it's, that's not a good place to start from. So yeah, we want to try to map out how you're concluding that this is true, and then walk us, please, can you walk us through your steps on how you got there? Could somebody follow the same path and end up in a completely different destination? If so, what does that say about the steps? So examining the steps that people use to arrive at their conclusions can be really helpful in that regard. And it's not always about lowering confidence. Let's be clear. Like a lot of the videos you see is sometimes maybe we got a little too excited about this idea of lowering people's confidences that their claims are true. But you can go through this exercise and somebody could increase their confidence or stay the same or lower their confidence. It almost doesn't matter if the end result is them having a better sense of what it is that they believe and the reasons why, and if their methodologies for confirming those reasons are solid. Because the next time they're engaged in a conversation on that topic, they'll probably have their thoughts better lined up the next time around. And maybe they won't lead with that one reason that they did before, because perhaps in the interim, they've realized that that's not such a good reason. Maybe I need to have a different reason, or maybe I should actually lower my confidence in this claim. And this started in the atheist community. This is a great technique if you are an atheist looking to have better conversations with theists. However, we learned that if you're a theist looking to have better conversations with theists or atheists, then you can also learn this. So we learned that this is a very versatile tool that's not just for exploring God claims. You can use it for all sorts of supernatural claims and political claims and social issues. We want to move this out of the atheist community. It's been in the atheist community for the last 7 or 8 years. We've worked out a lot of the problems with the approach. And if the way that you get better at something is by listening to the criticisms. And because of how this started and because of the pushback that we received, SE has come out stronger as a result. Like, we're ready for prime time now. We're developing materials. We're here on Clubhouse. We want to teach other people how to use this approach. And we can, I don't know how much more we need to talk about SE. Maybe at some point we should actually demonstrate what it is, or maybe even take questions to clarify any confusion. I know we've probably thrown a lot of the audience if they're not familiar with what we're talking about here.
Yeah, so I'm going to do a small reset for people who joined late. The plan today is to, we're hearing from the experts about street epistemology, and then we'll ask people to come up, people who want to question their beliefs. Like Anthony said, you don't need to have God claims. It can be, in many other realms, perhaps, I guess vaccines could be a topic, health, how can we rely on different experts? So yeah, just strong claims.
Another recommendation, recommendation as far as topic is, if you want to explore something, it's better if it's a fact claim. Like, I think that this thing, whatever, is true. We're not looking for your personal opinion. So I'm not looking to street epistemologize whether you think vanilla ice cream tastes better than chocolate. But if you think vanilla ice cream has less calories than chocolate, for example, then that's a fact claim about reality that we can explore. So that would be probably a nice little distinction before we bring people up. What are some? I'm thinking it might not hurt to go over some common misconceptions about SE, maybe before we get to that. Because a lot of people hear what we're doing, and here's what almost always comes up. Because of street epistemology, they think that this is going out on the street and initiating talks with people, which is what Reid and I essentially do. So it's hard to deny that that's not what it is. But street epistemology can be used anywhere with anyone. We just go out because we want to have video examples to show other people how to do this. A lot of people think that those who are into street epistemology don't answer questions, that we refuse to answer questions, that it's all about us asking the questions and you're the one answering. And that's not yes, I think I'll admit that in my videos, they're largely one-way directed. I'm the interviewer. I'm talking to an interviewee who agreed to stop for 5 or 10 minutes, usually goes 20. And I generally do ask a lot of questions. And early on, I wasn't keen on telling them where I stood on their claim because I didn't want to influence them. But when you do that enough, people start complaining that that's what SE is, that it's not this back and forth, and it absolutely can be. So that's a common misconception. People who are doing street epistemology can, of course, share their views and answer questions and even encourage them. Although just keep in mind that it could detract from your efficiency of using the tool. It might just take longer to get down to why they think something is true. Another common criticism is that you're picking on unprepared or unready people. These are people who weren't anticipating this conversation. They're not studied in the topic. How dare you? Kind of thing. We pretty much are willing to talk to anyone, anywhere we go. We don't know who we're going to run into. Now, you can talk with people who are well-versed in a subject, and you can still use SE. In my experience, it just takes longer. And maybe there's more at stake with people who are studied on it. They've invested a lot of time. Maybe they have a career in it. Those people are likely far more entrenched in their views, and it's going to take longer to have breakthroughs with them, I think. What's another common misconception, Reid? I've got a list of other things here, but I'm wondering if you have any.
I've got a quick one.
Go ahead, David.
One that I kind of run into sometimes is the criticism that it doesn't seem like a natural conversation, like a natural back and forth. And I think that's partially true because, especially in our culture, we're used to more of a debate. Like you say your position, I say my position, and then we try to debate and try to figure out who's right.
Right.
And so it kind of is a different approach in a conversation. When I use SE, I'm not really interested in convincing somebody where I stand. I'm interested in learning about the other person's viewpoint, and I'm interested in having them explore their own viewpoint, not necessarily exploring where I'm standing. And so I think, like Anthony was saying before, intention before you start the conversation is really important. So so that you know what success looks like, or what it might look like having this conversation. And the best thing I think about SE is that you can examine different claims. It doesn't have to be specific topics, and it can come up in everyday life, at the grocery store, in the elevator. So I'm a very shy person, and I don't really like engaging with people. But SE has really raised my confidence in having conversations with people when I otherwise probably wouldn't have. So I don't know if you want to comment on that criticism, but that's one that I run into quite a bit.
Yeah, I would like to comment on that because I have a video that I'm waiting for the guy to give me the thumbs up to release it. It's the second conversation with a guy who he's married to a young Earth creationist, and he's not. He's studying anthropology and he accepts evolution. And he came up to me looking for, like, to let me know that that's what he's doing, and he's looking for advice. And in our second conversation, his wife notices his different style of engagement because he was arguing and debating with her, and it was very hostile. And she's like, why are you using this different style of questioning? Like, I know what you're doing. You're trying to manipulate me. She detected the difference in approach and interpreted it as manipulation. So to your point, David, like, people aren't used to seeing these kind of conversations where it's usually somebody asking questions, 10 questions in a row with plenty of time for the person to think about it. That's an unusual human conversation. Let's admit it. It's unusual. But you can do things at the start to prepare your conversation partner for it. Like, I've learned this technique called Street Epistemology. There's all these videos online. Feel free to look into it. It's essentially where you ask people questions to get down to the foundation that's propping up their belief or their confidence in their belief. It's usually a series of questions, and I'd really try to keep my position out of it as much as possible. Is that something that you would be interested in doing? Now you've prepared them for this unusual event that will probably be happening, and then you probably won't get that pushback. In fact, you'll likely be delivering what it was you said that would be happening. So you have the advantage of building trust too. Like, yeah, this is an unusual conversation, but they warned me in advance. Like that, I really appreciate that they did that. That would probably be my recommendation, is give people a heads up that you want to try something different, because they will notice a difference in style, especially if you've been arguing with them in the past.
Yeah, and this
Right. It's like, go ahead, Reid.
thanks. Yeah, to get around the manipulation charge, we want to keep our goals and everything we're intending to do completely out in the open, so people can reject consent to do the conversation. Like, these questions can potentially, shake someone up about their beliefs, and that could potentially cause them to completely revise a huge part of themselves, of what they see as part of their identity, and that could potentially cause them short-term, mental problems. So that we want to make sure everything is good to go, and that could be a potential possibility.
Yeah. I do think it's interesting that we get pushback on that what we're doing might fall in the realm of manipulation, whereas a debate or raising young kids to believe things that are true with not a lot of pushback isn't really, I guess, commonly complained about. So because of the pushback we got over the years with SE, I think it's forced us to build in safeguards into our system. Safeguards maybe is not stopgap measures or little checks and balances maybe along the way of, hey, maybe I should check in with this person and see how this is going. You were concerned that this might be a whole bunch of questions and that you would have a chance to respond in return. How are we doing? Would you like to ask me questions now, or can I continue asking questions? Our concern about how this approach is being perceived is actually improving the technique, if you ask me. Like, I think we got a lot more responsible with this technique over the years, because mainly when you do this enough with believers and people who make claims, it's not uncommon to see them lower their confidence in their position or make some adjustment, and adjustments can be disruptive. So when you recognize how disruptive your questions can be, it dawns on you as a practitioner and promoter of this method, like we are, that there's a certain responsibility that we probably have. So usually if you notice a video on the street or something, we tend to explain what we're doing and potential outcomes. Could we do better? Absolutely. We could probably over-explain to the point that we scare people off. So like 80% of the people that we talk to now don't want to do it because, I don't know, we were too graphic, maybe, or something like that. So it's one of the challenges, really, because like, I see this as one of the most effective, efficient, and compassionate ways to engage with somebody about their belief. And at the same time, because of that, I'm concerned about it. I'm concerned about the responsibility that we have as practitioners and promoters of this. Like, because we can teach people how to do this. Here's how you do it. Here's the steps. But if we don't also say, by the way, here's some really important things to keep in mind, I'm worried that like a harmful variation of this could become popular. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, you're speaking about the ethics side of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Well, we probably yacked long enough. I'm thinking maybe we can take a few questions from the audience about SE, or if you have a claim that you'd like to have one of us question you about, or if maybe you've had a situation where you've attempted to use SE, like the guy in my video, and you're looking for some advice, or you're thinking about having a conversation where you want to maybe use this approach. But see, I'm not exactly sure what we're dealing with here. Maybe we actually need to demonstrate, and maybe we can do a demo. Just the two of us, we could do a quick one where we can actually show what a typical conversation might look like. But it's up to you. I don't know where you want to go with it, Alfonso.
I think I'd like to invite someone from the audience to show it live rather than,
By the way, so on that note,
there's a bit of.
I don't want to take the first person that offers a claim. I want to have a little bit of facilitator discretion here, because we did a workshop. We've done some workshops in the past, and sometimes the example we get isn't ideal for this situation. Not that SE doesn't work for that, but it might take more time. So it might be cool to get 2 or 3 ideas, and then we can pick. And I think I'd end up picking an easy one just to illustrate the technique.
So, do you mean to do it with one of the moderators on stage, or to pick 3 people from the audience?
What the best way is to do this. Maybe you can come up. If you do want us to. Maybe raise your hand if you have a claim that you would like us to entertain, and then we'll send you back to the audience, and then we'll bring 3 people up, and then Reid and I and David will decide.
Okay, so we have
cool?
John Falstead. He raised his hand. And he runs the Foxhole. He's an atheist, so he might have a claim that wants to be challenged.
Okay.
I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but I don't want to forget to offer the audience resources where they can watch Anthony and Reid's videos after the room is done. And I also wanted to offer some of the things that we might talk about could be, for lack of a better word, maybe triggering. And I just wanted to make sure that today I mentioned Recovering from Religion. It's a volunteer organization of people that can help offer peer support for those that are coming out of religion and need a safe place to land and someone to talk to. So I just wanted to throw that out there. It was something that I wanted to make sure that I didn't forget to mention.
Appreciate that. All right, Fox.
With that said, I think we have to come clear that we're not here to convert or deconvert, just to help people think critically. It's a safe space, right?
And also with that, I hit the wrong button. I was trying to invite more people and I hit the wrong button. So I won't stay up here long. I do want to. I'll ask a quick question later on in the Q&A if that's okay. I'll go back down again.
No problem. Yeah, you can also join the stage, hop on the stage if there's a quick question you want to ask us. But if you also have a topic that you want us to consider, then maybe when we get 3 of those, then we can choose to do the walkthrough on that.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate that my DMs are open for people who want to make a quick question or a comment, and they're not willing to come on stage for any reason.
Yeah. If it's rather quiet, I'm sure we can vamp or even do like a demo conversation. Yeah, there's a ton of examples on our YouTube channels. If you search for Street Epistemology and whatever topic you like, so like aliens or vaccines causing autism or whatever, you'll probably get a hit. There's a lot of people that are uploading videos these days. Hey, Quinn, what's up?
What's up, Anthony? How are you guys doing?
Good. Quinn has a YouTube channel as well. Quinn Questions. Check him out.
Quinn Questions, yes. QQ. I'm getting back into it, by the way. I just went out for the first time a couple of days ago.
Do you think your style would be much different now that you had such a big time off? Like, do you think you do it or approach it any differently than what you've been doing?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about that. I think so. I think when I went out this time, I was able to the main thing was implementing that thing that you actually told me about, which is, I think I maybe demand a little bit too much of people's time. Like, I'm like, hey, I'm going to ask you a couple more questions or a few more questions or something.
Yeah.
And now I'm getting more into the habit of politely asking people if they're okay with sticking around for a couple more questions, or that turned out better. I came up on stage because I had kind of a silly claim that I thought of. If you want to use it for the example, it's that, like, I think that astrology has manifested itself to map onto reality, in the sense that it's not actually true that planets determine our personalities, but the growing social construct of astrology has influenced people's personalities in a very real way.
That's an awesome topic. Okay, I'm writing it down, so maybe we'll bring you up.
Okay.
That's interesting. Yeah, you are in California, so I hope I didn't out you. But I know a lot of the conversations that you had tend to go law of attraction, astrology, and those types of directions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Quinn, nice to meet you. Can you restate the claim?
Yeah, I literally want to think of a clear way to say it. I think that the institution and social construct of astrology has influenced people's personalities in a predictable manner, such that, like, if you believe that a Pisces acts a certain way and you're a Pisces, and you believe that a Pisces acts the way that horoscopes tell you that they're going to act, it will influence you to act that way.
Let me try to repeat back. Astrology doesn't describe people's personalities, it prescribes people's personalities.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good way to put it.
Okay.
Thanks.
We'll keep that up. We'll keep that on list, Quinn.
I have a question from the audience, from a DM. So Magopia, who I can't find presently. There he is. He asks, how do you deal when someone makes the infinite regress claim?
Like the universe had to have a start or something like that, that argument?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Usually, for number one, most theists that I meet on the street when I'm initiating talks don't go to the first mover argument. Usually it's a personal experience, or they take it on faith that it's true. But if somebody says, well, I know God is real because you can't just keep going back. There had to have been a first cause. And what I usually do is ask them how they determined that it was their deity that was the first cause. And maybe even more importantly, like, why are you moving off of uncertainty? Why are you moving from, I don't know how this started, to saying that you have the answer? What moved you from, I don't know, to now a high degree of confidence that it was your entity that started it? And that usually gets them into surfacing their reasons. Well, it says it in my holy book, or they may say, well, I just can't imagine it any other way. And then you can say, well, if we discovered another person who couldn't imagine it any other way, that it had to have been a natural cause, what would you say to them? Would they be on equal footing if they gave the same answer? There's a couple of ways that you can go about doing it. Another good question might be like, well, how did you exclude other causes? Like, how did you exclude a natural cause? I'm actually curious. We have lots of examples of natural cause things. Like, how did you rule that out? I'd really like to understand how you excluded that and decided to go with this answer in exchange. So again, I'm not telling them, I'm not bringing up science, I'm not giving them a link to an article or anything at all like that. I'm asking them questions to reveal how they became sure that they're right. Advices on that particular claim?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to go about it. This is the real reason check part of the SE conversation. Sometimes people throw out reasons that they think should be persuasive to outsiders, rather than something that actually causes them to have confidence. So it's good to check to make sure this is the thing that gives them confidence. And if it's not, you can just skip that entire line of reasoning altogether.
So true. Like sometimes people, I think, in order to defend their position, and it could be about God or anything else, they'll give examples of things that they're mysteries to us. We don't really know, but they'll position this unknown as a justification for being sure that they're right. And that's where I get confused. Like, no. Like, how are you making that leap? How are you getting there? Sometimes I think it's a distraction. Let me distract you with this really impossible situation. Like, we don't know how life came from non-life. Therefore, I'm justified in giving my answer. Like, it's very interesting. And to Reed's point, these reasons that they're giving don't necessarily contribute to their own level of confidence. So like a good question would be like, let's say that we one day actually could discover to your satisfaction that how a universe could naturally form from what you agree to a definition of nothing would be. Like, would this have any impact whatsoever on your confidence that God is real? More than likely, they might say yes. In which case, now you're sort of waiting in standby mode for good evidence to show that that's the case. But more often than not, there are other reasons that carry more weight towards their confidence. And in SE, we really want to figure out what are the reasons that contribute or impact your confidence most.
So yeah, Magobio said thank you for that response, and he appreciates the way the questioning goes. I think we often miss that point when we're debating or talking to people. I think that's such a key question. How do you conclude that it is actually that it has to be God to fill that gap, right?
And I think it's okay for us as the questioners or the atheists to say, like, I'm not sure how that happened. I would love to understand. However, I'm not so desperate, careful with that word, but I'm not so desperate to know the answer to it that I'm willing to sacrifice my demand for good evidence. So what is the evidence that's moving you from I don't know to this had to have been this as the cause, for example? So showing, modeling your own uncertainty can be really valuable. Like it's not weakness to say, I really don't know how that's happening or what the answer to that is. I think there's often a stigma with saying, I don't know. Now, that might be another thing. Like people who are coming up with these justifications, they may be coming from a culture where it's discouraged to show that you're questioning or doubting or wondering. You need to be certain. It's a virtue to believe it when you're not sure in many cases.
Yeah, I've heard from employers that it's better to have an answer than to not have an answer, and that's pretty disturbing.
Okay.
Oh wow.
So one question. We have Andy and Hari Kishan who joined the stage. So I want to ask a couple of questions. Do we want to engage one-on-one, and perhaps we could move the people who have asked their questions into the audience so we don't overcrowd the stage? Or are you guys happy to keep people on stage? I think it would help clarity to people who have already asked their questions or participated to move themselves back to the audience, just for clarity.
If you've asked your question or revealed your topic that you may want us to SE you on, then yeah, if you could go back to the room. But I don't think we've heard from Andy or Hari yet, right?
No, we haven't. So Andy was on stage first. Quinn, do you mind moving yourself to the audience?
Okay, well, I can go ahead, I guess. So regarding this astrology question, I'm an astronomer, and so of course we care about and study these things. There is some evidence that the Chinese zodiac has influenced people's personalities. Partly it's because people could only have one child for a long time, so they might wait till a certain year for the supposed personality traits that would be conferred upon that child to be born in that year.
Wow.
And then really mold the child to have those personality traits, because this is what's culturally expected of you as well. And so there's been some scientific studies of this, that the Chinese zodiac actually does influence personality. And then even socially, then also it's sort of expected in your cohort. You might go to university and everybody's born the same year, in a certain year, and then they are supposed to act a certain way and so on. So there's scientific studies about that. I'm not sure about the sort of Western zodiac, but it'd be interesting if there were studies based on that. But I think it's less culturally prevalent. And it's a little more diffuse in the interpretations of the signs and planets, and not everybody is mixed together in the same way, because it doesn't go year by year. It goes like month by month. So it's harder to determine people's sign. And so I would expect the effects to be much reduced.
All right. Hari, do you have a question about street epistemology or a potential topic that you would like us to SE you on or consider SEing you on?
Sure. First of all, thank you for bringing me up. I'd like to know if you're willing to entertain a topic where human species is probably not evolved naturally, and we could have been genetically created by a superior species or more intellectual species to a point where the Earth could be a prison planet.
Humans did, or they were created by another species, or they could be?
Yeah, that's a claim. I'm leaning to believe that we were genetically created by a superior species and not evolved naturally.
Awesome.
And we could be living in to a point where we could be living in a prison planet, which is Earth.
I think we found a winner, but yeah, we can keep going if you want.
I'd like to get a third one, maybe just because we said three, but yeah, that's a good one. Prison planet? Okay. Like, I don't even think you need to throw that one in there. Like the first part of that was good enough, unless it's related. Like, you can't have the first part unless there's also the prison planet part. Okay. That's really good. Do you have a quick SE question before we send you back? Because I want to entertain one more topic before.
No. Yeah, that's fine. No, happy to go back.
Okay. Don't go away too far. That's a good one.
Stick around.
Sure. All right. And David, maybe you can SE him on that, or I don't know if we can do a 3-on-1. We'll gang up on you, maybe. I don't know. All right. Thanks. You can leave the. Oh, did you have a SE question? Sorry.
No, we didn't.
No. I'm still trying to figure out how to go back down to the audience.
Okay, so then I guess
I moved him down.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Reid.
Abe, what's up?
Hey, Reid. How you doing? Hi, Anthony.
Hello, Abe.
Hey, Alfonso, thanks for bringing me up here.
You're welcome.
So I actually had two things I wanted to talk about. First of all, Anthony, thank you so much for making your YouTube channel. I've been watching you for years now.
Cool.
And,
Thanks.
yeah, thank you. I have my own background of examining my own beliefs. And I really think street epistemology has been an amazing thing for not just religious claims, like you said, but for my life in general of having conversations with people. And I have two questions. One of them is regarding the use of the scale in street epistemology. Sometimes people embrace the scale and they like it, but other times I get pushback against it, where I say on a scale of 0 to 100, where would you most likely put your belief? And they say, oh, I don't want to put a number on it. I believe it, or something like that. So when you encounter that, what's a good way that you address that?
I don't normally get resistance on the scale, but if I do, I usually am very quick to just throw it off to the wayside, because it's not critical. You can still use SE on a person's claim and uncover the real reasons and probe the reliability of their methods. The scale, however, is useful to get a sense of where they're at, so you can perhaps formulate questions that are more tailored to their situation. So it's advantageous, I think, for both of you if you can get a number. But some people just don't want to do it. I don't fight them over it. But I might ask them, I mean, it is possible that they're thinking that belief is binary, that you either believe it or you don't. And that could be, I mean, that's worth exploring by asking questions, but they're probably interested in moving on to the topic. But it probably couldn't hurt to just say that that you're hoping that they can look at their belief in terms of a gradient, that the more information they get about the belief to show that it's true, they would increase. And if they start to discover that they don't have reasons, or the reasons they have aren't good enough, that they would lower their confidence in that claim. But people aren't used to thinking in that way. And there might even be a stigma with the scale, especially if you don't like SE and you encounter somebody who's asking you to put your belief on a scale. You may have instantly revealed that you're doing SE, and now you have a very guarded conversation partner. So I wouldn't get really too wrapped up in the scale. It's optional.
Got it. Okay. No, thank you for that. Yeah, I generally maybe I use the scale more because I like to be able to circle back after we examine the belief and say,
you can even tell them that. You could say,
yeah.
like, I found the scale useful because after a short talk, sometimes I notice fluctuations, and it could be useful to have a gauge to see where you're at now and where you're at afterwards. You can lay it all out there. And then they're like, oh, shit, like, okay, I could actually fluctuate my certainty here? So it's useful to let people know what they could possibly be getting themselves into. But some people just have a visceral reaction to it, and they don't want to participate in the scale part.
Right.
I feel like the scale is just as, if not more important or more useful for the interlocutor or the conversation partner than the SE practitioner.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great point. Yeah. And my second point, thank you for that, Anthony. And my second question was that I've had discussions with many different people and a lot of people in the audience who were interested in learning more about street epistemology. And like you said, Anthony, there are some people who take more like the Matt Dillahunty approach, which is a little bit more aggressive or a little bit more confrontational. And I think that in certain instances, it might be good, especially if you have someone who they actually seem to be like they want that type of conversation, or they actually express, like, oh no, I want you to challenge me or something like that. Then that can be okay. But the reason I got drawn to street epistemology is because maybe like yourself, I types, and I just on in a statistical graph, just I'm more likely to get a productive conversation using SE in the long run. Like if you take 100 conversations, something like that. So I just think it's a great tool, and I I really appreciate, like I said, you making your YouTube channel. I also really liked how in the beginning of your YouTube channel with your videos, you kept up the old ones so you can really see the difference, how much you improved. And I really, yeah, at the beginning you were quicker, maybe getting more annoyed quicker, and you really changed over the years. So yeah, so I really appreciate that. And yeah, I have a bunch more questions, but I'll leave it for other people now. But thank you.
Those are great questions. Yeah, the different styles. Couple thoughts on that. You can use an aggressive style with anybody. You have to ask yourself, what is going to happen when we're done? Will they want to talk with me again? Will they have become more resolute in their position because I was a jerk to them? If there were observers, what kind of message did I send about my tribe? So like if this is an atheist group and I'm an atheist and I was really cruel to a theist, that gives theists ammunition to just ignore atheists. But if you're a compassionate, listening, concerned questioner who's sincerely trying to understand why you think that this is true, it's very hard to demonize a person who's approaching things that way. Now, they may say that you're insincere or you're using a manipulation tactic. They will find ways to still poke holes in what you're doing. But if you value the relationship of the person that you're speaking with, then an aggressive approach, especially if they're not ready for it, some people might be, it's probably one of the worst things that you can do.
Also, I find that when you're listening, the listening takes a whole different space because we listen to ourselves when we speak. We can't avoid but listen to ourselves, and we're creating the thoughts. But when we bring out an aggressive approach to debating or to talking to people, we're guaranteed that we're listening to ourselves, but not to the other person, and then our shields come up, and we stop listening to other people, and we start attributing thoughts and ideas to the other person that they might not actually have said. So that's what I found in this club. We also, it was in the detriment of the club and of the speaking of the speakers when we had this aggressive approach of telling people rather than asking them, because for one thing, when I started to take a softer approach, a lot of the hard atheists started to stop coming because they wanted to have this aggressive thing, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, we allowed for other people who might have felt attacked to just stay in the room. Before, they would just pop in once and say feel they're not welcome here, so never come back. Whereas now we have more of a varied stage, and that adds so much more value to the club. We're able to have regulars who are theists and feel comfortable talking about it. So it's a whole different thing to have a homogeneous mainly atheist room, in contrast to have one where you have people who actually want to have a discussion and think critically. So I think we might lose in one area, but overall, I think we're gaining in the fact that we have people from different backgrounds that are willing to actually engage in thoughtful conversation.
Yeah, I have some advice for your audience on the different techniques. So, like I mentioned at the start, that SE is another tool that you can use. So I can debate somebody, I can ridicule them, I can give them facts, I can argue with them, I can whatever. And I can also street epistemologize with them. Here's my advice. Like, if you don't like SE, or it's not a style, let's just say maybe it doesn't appeal to you. You don't like it. It's too slow. At least acknowledge that there may be people who would respond really well to the approach. And if you encounter somebody like David or Quinn or somebody here, Abe, who's attempting to use SE, even though it might not be your style, that might be the approach that the person that they're speaking with needs to open them up to the in-your-face debating and fact approach. So it's not like we will never use your style, or it's not important, because it is, but there's a time and a place for it. And I'm worried that if we on the SE side demonize the debaters, then it's not like that could discourage people from actually helping other people in that way. But it's discouraging if I see people who are into debating discourage people who are into SE. I think we need to allow each other the space to have those interactions.
If I may, so a couple of nights ago we had a back and forth on questioning the stupidifying of people, right? So the claim was, people are stupid, and because they say such and such, and so I started to question people and to actually support that claim. Why would you say that someone is stupid, right? And we went into a bit of a, quite a nice reflective conversation on that, and the claim was something along the lines of, it was, I brought up Sir Thomas More. I think we were talking about utopia or something, and I mentioned how he got executed by King Henry VIII because he didn't want to make him the head of the church, and so this friend of mine said, "Oh, that's really stupid. Why would you give your life for?" And I had to kind of explain, but rather than explaining, I thought, let's question this. Why would you think? Why would you start labeling people in a certain way? Just because you have a couple of comments or ideas that come out of that conversation, and we do that with people we're confronting and we're debating because we're convinced that our arguments are so much better, but we're not actually listening or asking the right questions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Alfonso, great point. A quick anecdote, actually, because I go on all the different clubs or different rooms here on Clubhouse for like philosophy and religion and things of that sort. A couple days ago, I think I found myself in a room called Catholicism 101. And by doing Street Epistemology, I actually ended up a mod. And I had people who, at first they were like, at first they were upset and a little bit more emotional. But I think that 90% of people's initial reactions are usually, like you said, attributing things that you don't actually believe. So like they thought that an atheist means somebody who claims there is no God. And they were taking the strong position on that versus the weak position of somebody who's just unconvinced that a God exists. And I had a guy who actually like yelled at me, like, you don't believe, you say no God exists. And I took the time and I actually said, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that I'm unconvinced that a God exists. And he's like, so you're not saying no God exists? I said, no. He's like, oh, okay. So just getting people to actually slow down and acknowledge your position, which like you said, what some of the strongest positions are the positions of saying, I don't know. And to be able to embrace that like silence and that agnosticism is really, really powerful. So just want to share
that. We have Arpit on the stage. I don't know if you're speaking, Anthony. We can't hear you.
Yeah,
welcome,
hi. Yeah, thank you. So thanks, Anthony, for all that you do. So I'm from India, and over here, street epistemology is kind of unheard of, and I think it would infuriate a lot of people if I if that was done. So
infuriate.
Yeah. It would.
Just so culturally, it would be weird to like stop. Like, well, yeah. What are you talking about? Street epistemology would infuriate people, or just in general?
Well, it's SE would infuriate people, as in like, you don't have any business questioning my beliefs. Why do you even want to know? I mean, what are you even hinting about? Something like that.
What if you gave them an answer to that? Would they still be against it?
Well, so basically, if you over here, everything is kind of a conspiracy against Hinduism. If you ask even, or if you kind of ask questions about Hinduism or their belief system, it's kind of thought of as as a very as efforts that you are taking to kind of demolish Hinduism. It's kind of thought of that way. So that's why I kind of wanted to ask you, there are people such as conspiracy theorists, right? And so their views are quite harmful to society. But I think at the same time, it is imperative that we have a look at the mechanism of how they are thinking and what they're thinking and why they're reaching their conclusions. But do you think that SE street epistemology efforts should be directed at these conspiracy theorists? Do you think that's beneficial, or do you think that's harmful? Because it might, sway some of the rational folks towards their beliefs. Thank you.
Oh, great question. I'm tempted to take it, but I feel like I've been talking a lot. Does anyone else want to do that? I can jump at it if you want me to.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to point out that it's I think it's a culture thing. Like here too, in the U.S., questions can be seen as a threat, and there's kind of some psychology behind that, evolutionary perhaps, that the same feeling that you get when you see a lion is the same feeling that you get when somebody's questioning what you've always believed, maybe. So I think that's interesting, and I think part of the, speaking of evolution, the part of evolution of SE is to kind of address the culture that views questioning as a threat, and like how do we change that?
Yeah. There may even be cultures where if you have elders, maybe it would be rude to even question an elder because of their age. Like I'm thinking there might be some countries, like in the United States, I've challenged people about their views on God, for example, whether they were 80 or 18 and everything in between. But there might be some cultures where you just nod and you just accept what your elder tells you, and it would be rude to question. Yeah. You have that there?
Exactly.
Is that, yeah.
Yeah, we have.
So this is the way we approached it here. I think one of these days, instead of challenging people, we invited them to preach, right? Instead of saying them, let me question you. Can you, share with me what your belief system is and why, and just ask questions as if you wanted to learn and to know more about them, rather than going at them and at their belief systems. A bit of an invitation to let them speak, and then you would say so, and then you could start asking questions, but more in the lines of you being you not understanding, or you not knowing, or you trying to understand where that claim comes from.
People do like talking about their views, and that can open them up to, if they really feel like you're hearing them out and listening to their views, they may be more open to questions later. But I wanted to get back to, you were asking about conspiracy theories or conspiracy theorists. Right. And I think it's important to revisit that. I do think you can use SE with any kind of claim, whether it's a religious one or somebody thinks that there's this major conspiracy, like people who are into QAnon or something. I would love to have some video examples where we're using SE to explore those claims. You absolutely can. There's a variation. I want to mention this. A couple of guys have developed this survey. We've dubbed it the SE survey, but we probably need a better name for it. And there's a couple of video examples on a channel called Abstract Activist, where he uses the survey with a room full of people to talk about things that impact our beliefs, or at least how we think about our thoughts. So, for example, do you strongly agree or strongly disagree that if I think something is true, I can make it true in reality? And another question might be, do you think there's an objective truth, or is it subjective? Something like that. So these are just broad questions that could be really useful for a conspiratorial-minded person to get a sense of how they are even thinking. That could be probably just as valuable or more valuable than using SE on their particular claim. So I'd urge you to, if you go to streetepistemology.com and go to resources, you'll have to scroll down a little bit, but there's a link to a survey, and you can facilitate it. Like, watch the video where the guy does it. His name's Nathan. He does a great job. He facilitates the survey with a room full of people and has these wonderful discussions. and it could be probably really useful for you. And if you're in a culture where it's rude to challenge claims, then the survey might be a really fun exercise for you because you're not even getting into the claim.
Yeah, that's great.
If you get a chance.
So Nathan, as in Nathan Orban, Digital Gnosis.
No, sorry. This is Nathan Ferguson, and his channel is Abstract Activist.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, thank you so much.
Let me do a small reset. We've got Anthony, David, and Reid, who are well-known street epistemologists. You can find them on Facebook, David on Facebook, and Reid and Anthony on their YouTube channels. And they're sharing a little bit about how you can examine your beliefs with street epistemology. If anybody wants to examine their beliefs, if you want to come up with a claim that you strongly feel about and you would be willing to have some questions asked, just raise your hands, please.
I actually do. So basically, this is when I engage with theists, right? So whenever I kind of ask them, why do you believe that supernatural events are kind of possible or something? So I get a question: why do you believe? What is the basis of your belief that the natural world is all there is, and that everything that you do or that we find out will always have a naturalistic explanation? So how do I justify this? Thanks.
Ooh, good question. If I was asked that question, I think I would say, well, that's all that appears to be happening is natural things. Like, what I would probably end up needing clarification. So, like, if I understand what you're saying, there's another realm besides the natural world that we're in now. Do you agree that we're sharing the same natural world right now? Like, you might want to make sure that that's actually one of the survey questions. Do you think we're all experiencing the same reality? But I think I would ask them, like, what am I missing? What do I need to see or discover or experience that would bring me around to your position? Like, I'm open to the idea that there's a supernatural realm, but can you help me understand what I'm missing to get there? Now then they might say, well, you need to read this book, or you need to pray, you need to open up your heart. I'm kind of curious. What kind of response? Have you tried that?
Yeah. So basically what they would say is that, so if you have certain phenomena which are not understandable which cannot be justified through naturalistic mechanisms, you might have a good reason to kind of conclude that these are supernatural events, unless you want to stick to the belief that these are always naturalistic.
So what I'm hearing you say, okay. Sorry, I'm going into SE mode already. Someone else wanted to talk?
Yeah, I was just going to say, as a scientist, I think this is, to me, science is just a way of not bullshitting yourself and verifying that something is correct. And so sometimes when I hear people say, like, supernatural, I get to, well, what do you mean by that, right? Because for me, something that we commonly put things into the supernatural realm, like, let's say, ghosts or, I don't know, astral projection or some other kind of thing. Well, if that had verifiable evidence, that just moves straight over into the natural world as we understand it. If we can reproduce it, right? Science would go right on to that, and it would be totally normal. So what you really mean by supernatural is something that can't be verified. And then if something can't be verified, then it's into a realm of there's no evidence for it. Get right back into sort of religion and I just believe it because I believe it kind of thing. Like I often take the idea of, people that, like the Harry Potter universe. People are like, oh, I wish there was magic in the real world. I'm like, there is. We're all talking to each other on a device that has all the world's knowledge and can connect all the world's people.
It's pretty
like
damn
magic mirror. Magic mirror that's way better than anything people had thought of in magic before we had science, right? And so, but that crosses over into science. You don't think of the cell phone as supernatural because you understand how it was made, because there is science, right? And so I guess that's where I would encourage people to say, well, what do you really mean by supernatural? Thanks.
Yeah, I think what I would do with Arpit's situation, if somebody came back and said, this is what I would say. It's like, what I think I hear you saying now is that if an event happens and we can't come up with a natural cause, we're justified in thinking that it was a supernatural cause. Is that what I hear you saying?
Yeah, that's what they go with.
If I hear footsteps in the middle of the night and I can't come up with a natural explanation for it, I'm justified in thinking that it was a leprechaun.
Well, that's well put.
Careful with that, because they may think that you're insulting them with that, or they may actually think leprechauns are real. But like they may say, well, maybe the discussion started, it's about ghosts or spirits, and you can say like, am I justified in thinking that it's a spirit if I wake up and hear footsteps? And they may, who knows what they say? They may say yes, and you can say, well, how are you concluding that it's spirits and not some other supernatural explanation? Or how did you rule out a natural explanation for it? And then you could just have maybe a broader conversation about assumptions. Like, why should we make assumptions about things that we are not actually sure is the case? What might be a more honest way to go about doing it? But I would resist coming up with explanations like, say, well, it obviously was water dripping, or it was more than likely it was your sibling who was playing a trick on you. Resist the temptation to come up with explanations that you think they'll find convincing.
Yeah, that's well said. Thanks.
So, do you think we could tackle Hare Krishna's claim to get started?
If he's still here, we were chatting behind the scenes.
Yeah, he's down in the audience.
And then if you're on the stage and you're done, then maybe you can sit yourselves back down, so we don't have to do it.
And did you want to do it, Anthony, or who did you want to do it?
I mean, if you want to go ahead and take the claim, it sounds like a really cool one. But you tend to do better in these situations than I do, so I'm happy with you doing it if you want to, or maybe David wants to.
I can try.
But I can go on mute.
I can try, and then you can like explain what I'm doing, and or bring in your own questions, whatever.
I'll tell you what. How about at moments of the conversation when you think enough has happened, where maybe David and I can give you some feedback? Is that cool? We do something like that?
Sure.
Okay. Hadi?
Yeah, go for it.
Is Hadi interested in coming back up? Oh, they are. Okay.
Yeah.
You have us intrigued.
Hello.
You win.
What do you mean? Yeah. So
Having the raffle?
Yeah, the raffle. So how's it going, Harry? Is that how you say Harry?
Yeah, I go with different names, Hari, but Hari being the most commonly called in the U.S.
Well, nice to meet you. How long have you been on Clubhouse? What are your favorite rooms to check out?
I think it's just 2 weeks.
Nice, 2 weeks. Cool.
Yeah.
What's been the most memorable conversation or room you've been a part of?
I've been to different rooms. I'm still exploring. I mean, I've been listening to a couple of your conversations, but I haven't come up on the stage yet until today. But I did speak on a few rooms and confidence building, and mostly in my native language. But yeah, I'm still exploring.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
What's your native language? Where are you calling in from?
My native language is Telugu, Southern Indian language, South Indian language. But I've been in U.S. I'm a U.S. citizen now. I've been in U.S. for the last 20 years.
Nice. Yeah.
And I was born and raised Hindu. Still practice in the family.
Awesome. I got to check out India someday. It's on my to-do list. I'll get there someday. So sweet. You wanted to talk about a potential claim, and you're cool to chat about it for a few minutes?
Real quick, this would be described as the rapport building which would be one of the first steps in having an SE conversation.
Yeah, I got to build that genuine rapport.
And too, like, only ask questions that you really want to know the answer to. Don't fake it. Like, don't fake sincerity. Like, yeah, I've never met this person before. They have an interesting name. How do you pronounce it?
Yeah.
Good question.
So you're cool with chatting about your aliens created humans genetically claim, and is that cool?
Yeah, sure.
Sweet. And did I repeat that back right, or did you want to state it again, or what was it?
Yeah, so we've been talking about this stalemate situation where when you're having a conversation with theists and we try to explain everything based on science and logic and rational and reasoning, and then when we come to a point where we can't explain the things that are not yet scientifically be proven, so we attribute that to the supernatural power or God. That's when we lose the debate, or that's when we get into stalemate with the theists. And this claim of mine, it seems to somehow explain to some degree, like, what if we are actually genetically created by superior races or race? Because how do we know that our human civilization is only 50,000 years old and humans are probably 300,000 years old? And considering the fact that the universe is, like 13 to 14 billion years old, it's possible that there were other species much superior than us, and they have genetically created us with certain limitations, and they're out there somewhere in this ever-expanding infinite universe. And that's one of the reasons we're not able to think beyond and perceive beyond certain level of wisdom, where we get into this situation we can't explain a few things. That's because we've been capped. I just wanted to explore that scenario, and maybe they are the gods that these claim, that it could be just those superior beings that they have created us, and they could be the gods.
Okay, cool. There's a lot there. Let me try to repeat back what I'm hearing you say. Yeah, so humanity has a lot of questions that we have yet to answer, and what I'm hearing you say is that we are kind of capped potentially genetically from answering these questions that might just be beyond our capacity. And one explanation for that cap is our nature was created by aliens or some type of other species in the past, and they did that for some reason. I don't know, but that's an explanation for the origin of humanity and human civilization. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Correct. I intentionally stayed away from using the word aliens because they don't necessarily be existing now. They don't have to be. They might have become extinct after they created us. We don't know. But yes, sure, we can call them aliens.
They might have made us, stuck around, gone extinct, or just bolted from.
Or
Earth.
Just ignored us and not bother to track us anymore.
Maybe we can just boil it down to this simple claim that another intelligent species created humans in the past at some point.
Yep.
Is that a fair claim to talk
gist
about?
of it. Yep.
All right.
Awesome. Can we jump in?
Yeah,
Can we jump in real quick? This was great. You guys this is fucking awesome. All right. So we're at the claim clarification stage essentially here. Like, in order for us to do SE, we kind of need to know what it is Hadi is saying. And I noticed Hadi sort of said it as a question. Like, what if we are genetically created by superior races and those are the gods? But claims aren't questions. We really need to get it down to a fact statement, and then repeats it back. What I'm hearing you say is blah blah blah. Like Reid is announcing that he's going to be repeating back what Hari just said. And that's so useful because you're telegraphing that you're intending to understand here. And that if there is a misunderstanding, Reid wants to know it because Reid doesn't want to knock over a straw man version of Hari's view or anything like that, intentionally or accidentally. So it's in everyone's best interest to make sure that both parties understand each other. And I think Reid even says, I want to boil this down to a simple claim. Exactly. We need to have a claim to explore before we move much further.
Yeah, and I think that's demonstrated by Reid's wanting to use the terms that Hadi is comfortable using. It sounded like Hadi was a little bit not very comfortable using the word aliens. And so if the interlocutor doesn't want to use specific words, it's kind of like using their definitions instead of yours and making sure that that definition is clear. You want to use the definition that they are used to using because we're examining the reasons why they believe something. So I think that's important. We're establishing the claim. We're clearing up what words mean, and kind of going from there.
Picked up on the aliens thing. Because, sometimes people will reveal their own boundaries. So maybe Hadi has had conversations in the past where whenever aliens comes up, it goes off the rails or something. So you never know. Like, you need to listen because sometimes your conversation partner is telling you, like, that's an area that I don't really want to go. Now, it doesn't mean that Reid can't go there, but Reid is now possibly aware that there might be some areas of this conversation that are off limits or problematic. It's good to make a mental note of that.
Yeah, the only reason I wasn't comfortable using the word aliens is whenever I try to use it, it becomes trivial. I just wanted to, focus on the fact that the main characteristic of the aliens is to be like superior or a species of higher intelligence. Aliens doesn't necessarily mean that they're automatically superior beings that are capable of creating us genetically. That's why I refrain from using that, but I'm totally comfortable using that word as long as we, are in agreement with that.
Yeah, I'm fine with using your definition. The species of higher intelligence, genetically created humans sometime in the past. This is what we're talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. And on a scale from 0 to 100, how confident are you that this is actually true and happened in the past?
Pretty confident. We're at 75%.
About 75, all right. And what gets you to that level of confidence right now? What is the main reason?
It seems to explain the ambiguity or the stalemate situation where and there's a conflict between the science and the existence of supernatural powers or God. This seems to be the most logical explanation because it explains the both worlds where, we could have been, it's possible that right now we're talking about creating artificial consciousness and maybe 1,000 years or 2,000 years from now, we could be those superpowers but if we were to look at them now, there'd be nothing short of, quote unquote, gods. So it's quite possible that they were already there several hundred millions or billion years ago. And it also explains, at the same time, it also explains the fact that these are the people that are being perceived as gods by the theists. So it seems to explain the both narratives to a certain degree of conviction. That's one of the main driving reasons for lean towards that claim.
Okay, so it explains some questions we may have regarding various things that we are in a stalemate situation right now between science and potentially religion or spirituality, and this model of a superior intelligent species creating us helps explain those ambiguities. Yeah, and what is this conflict about? What are some of the main conflicts right now that this explanation explains?
The basic conflict when the science can't explain certain things, and then the theists come to dominance, where they claim their thesis to be true, and at the same time we can challenge the theists with science of some of their beliefs, and then nobody's a winner here. I mean, we cannot come to the consensus.
What's an example of something that science can explain that this explains better?
Or we can't explain what's before Big Bang Theory, right? At this point, can't explain. Science can't explain that. How does everything come out of nothing? And then at that point, theists claim that that has to be that supernatural power who could do that. And at the same time, if God is omnipresent and this has the highest moral, holds the highest moral values, then why is there suffering? And science can explain a lot of things, debunk a lot of beliefs, religious beliefs that we already know. So there are winners on the both sides, depending on what the topic is. But this claim seems to explain both narratives.
Okay, how does it explain? How does the more intelligent species existing explain questions like why is there something rather than nothing, and why is there suffering? How do these things relate specifically?
It doesn't explain that, but it could be the reason that would have probably they know that they can explain that. But since we've been capped to be able to think beyond that.
Okay, what I'm hearing you say is our inability to answer these big, profound questions is because we're potentially capped in some way, that we're just not intelligent enough to do that. And one explanation for that capping is our genetic creation by a higher intelligence.
Yes.
Okay. If someday, like next year, we had really good answers to these questions, hypothetically, I'm not saying that'll happen, would that change your confidence about these existing?
Absolutely.
Oh, that would. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's really about how to answer these questions, and so we're being capped. At what point in the past did this happen? Do you think that we were created as humanity by this other intelligent species?
Well, I don't know, but it could have been any time in the past. I mean, the universe is billions of years old, and our current human species is about only 300,000 years old. So there could have been n number of other species, probably more intelligent than us, that have been created in that timeline.
Okay, so maybe like 300,000 years ago, did like the more intelligent species bring another species of ape to Earth, or did they change what was there in the past in some way?
Could be either. They could have, created using an existing species and did some genetic modifications and created us.
Some genetic modifications. Okay. Could have just taken whatever population of pre-human apes were there and genetically modified them in some way.
Yeah.
Okay. How could we test this claim hypothetically? Is there anything we could know or learn or find out that would be a good reason to change our confidence about this one way or the other? What's a good way to test this claim?
Yeah, that's what I'm here for. If you can test this or disprove this, I'm open for that.
Yeah, what would cause you to be more confident about it? Is there anything we could discover specifically?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, appreciate your honesty.
Mm-hmm.
And the other way, is there anything that would cause us to be much less confident that this is the case? What would we need to find out? What would need to be true in order to change our confidence about it?
That we could explain everything scientifically?
Yeah, anything short of that? What's the minimum that we could find out that would just change our confidence even slightly?
Maybe create consciousness artificially.
If we ourselves created artificial intelligence,
Mm-hmm.
that would be evidence
To
that
that
we
extent.
were not created by an alternative intelligence. Could those both be true at the same time?
No, well, that'd be the opposite. If we could somehow genetically create some new human species, then my claim, I would be, it'll put confidence in me in believing my claim.
What I'm hearing you say is, if we were created by a higher intelligence, then that means it would be impossible for ourselves to be able to create another intelligence?
If we could create another lower intelligence species than us, then probably that would debunk my claim.
How would it? Couldn't it be true we were created by an intelligent species and we also create another species?
It all depends on how we've been programmed when we were being created, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. Is this a good way to test this claim, our ability to create another species? Is there anything else we could discover that would make it more of a good test to tell, a good way to tell?
Nah, I can't think of anything now. But
all right, well, cool. Sweet. Well, I appreciated the conversation, and feel free to stick. If you see me again on Clubhouse, we'd love to continue it at some point. Any questions for me? Any feedback?
Sure. That's it for now. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Cool. Thanks, Ari.
Very nice. Nice convo. I've got some thoughts. Hadi, let me start with you though. What were your thoughts about the conversation? Have you ever participated in an SE discussion before? Let's start with that.
No, I haven't, and it's been really great experience. It kind of gave me homework, if I can say that. And I rarely take homework in any of the prior conversations, and I really appreciate that.
What you're calling homework, we might call a pebble in the shoe or something along those lines, like giving you something to think about. And that's really one of the biggest goals of SE, is not to tell you you're wrong, not to give you information showing that you're mistaken, but to incentivize you to think about your thoughts, to see, You know, am I justified in being 75% sure that this is true?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Okay, so I wanted a couple of things. I noticed Reid asked you your confidence level. You said you were pretty confident. When he asked for your main reason, it took a while to get to the reason. Like it was very kind of vague, but that's okay. Like sometimes people aren't used to explaining their main reason why they think something is true. So it was a little muddled, but that's to be expected. And as an outsider, like these are thoughts that I've never thought of before. So I was like kind of struggling to follow along. But it seemed like the claim kind of settled on our inability to answer profound questions is evidence, maybe, that we're capped by whoever created us. That I think is the claim. It did become apparent, like you valued testing. Sometimes we encounter conversation partners that don't see the value of a test. They might say, it's not even important for me to test this. But you didn't say that. You were open to the idea of a testing. And then Reid asked, what would increase your confidence that this is true? That's a really good question because, and this is why scales are important. If you said 100, well, there's nothing that can increase. Like we can only talk about what might move you down, I guess, or what's keeping you at 100. But if you're at 75, then there should be something that would increase your confidence. And having a discussion about what that would be can be really revealing. And when he asked you what would increase your confidence, that's when you said, I'm not sure. And there was this really long pause. And I don't know if that was natural or not, or if you were sort of hamming it up for the audience. I don't know. Hopefully that was just a really nice, natural, sincere, organic reaction. But you may have noticed that Reid didn't rescue you from that pause, right? He wanted you to be thinking about it. We want you to be thinking about it. You probably want to be thinking about it. So it's really important to not interject when somebody's thinking. I noticed then that Reid pressed, like you kept revisiting that idea. Like I think I would have, this is probably where I would have differed from Reid. I think I might have said something like, what are you thinking about the conversation so far? Do you need to take a break? Can I ask you some more questions? You know, if I notice my conversation partner struggling a little bit, like it seemed like you were there just a little bit, that's a flag for me to be cognizant of it and consider checking in with you. But all in all, it was just a great conversation. And then Reid's closing was perfect. Thanks so much. Do you have any questions for me? He didn't revisit the confidence scale, but that's okay. You don't have to. Like, it's not necessarily useful to remind you of your starting point.
Always forget to do that.
I do too. I usually forget to bring it up in the first place. I'm not so fixated on the confidence scale, but yeah. Awesome job, both of you.
Thank you.
There's one thing that I want to kind of reflect upon. I think it takes, so the amount of energy you invest when you engage in street epistemology, because you need to concentrate and really focus on what they're saying rather than listen to your reactive thoughts, right? I think that's one of the best exercises that I get out of, questioning and trying to understand the other person rather than bringing up my reactive thoughts and my rationale to confront that. And so I want to compare that investment that you do with the person you're questioning, you're having the conversation with, to when you engage in this heated debate like context where you're investing a different time of it. It seems to me like you're trying to be very efficient by just blurting out all the incompatibilities or the illogical framings and from whatever they're saying. So I just wanted to bring that out, that there was something that's resonating in my head. And Harry, Dan, who's in the audience, I think he came to Clubhouse because of you, and he enjoyed this conversation a lot. So I think we're Anthony, David, and Reid, you're doing an amazing job.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I like that idea of investment because regardless of what tool you're using in your engagement, you're investing something. You're investing your time, you're investing your reputation, your ego. There's a certain cost, I guess, when you engage. But when I'm using SE, I guess I'm I'm investing my time in my conversation partner. I know it sounds kind of hokey, but I'm trying to take myself out of it. Reid was likely taking himself out of it and his ego out of it to make it all about Hadi. This is Hadi's view. This is his perspective, and I want to help Hadi take a close look at it. So you're repositioning your assets, I guess, is maybe a different way of thinking about it. I don't need to be well versed on this subject. I don't need to have my ego invested in it. If he says something that I find offensive, I don't have to worry about it because it's his view. And I'm trying to help him. Like, me getting upset by anything that my conversation partner says has the potential to interfere with my ability to understand them and to help them understand themselves. So you find that you're bringing a lot less to the table when you're using an SE approach, as opposed to, I need to know all my arguments and get my shit together so I can destroy this person. Like, it's a lot easier. There's the investment is a lot lower, I think, maybe.
Right. And I really liked all the pregnant pauses in there, like you were saying. I think that's really important. Another thing I picked up on is that this particular platform, you're not really able to see their body language. And I think that what Anthony was saying earlier about being able to tell when somebody is getting a little agitated, it's harder to sense that using, texting and just by voice. There's a whole lot that you can pick up on by just reading somebody's body language and how they're reacting to the conversation so far. I think that the positive feedback that Hadi was given, like, you gave me some homework. I think if you were to hear that after any SE conversation, I think that's a sign that it was successful. I probably would, if I had consent, I might go a little deeper and maybe ask Hadi, how important, like, what impact does this belief have on your life? How important is this belief to you? So I might go in that direction. But thanks for sharing, everyone.
Important direction too. Like, yeah, what function is this belief serving? Like, what would be missing if you realize that you can't back this up and you drop from a 75 to a 2? What would change? We don't have to get into your answer here, but I also want to mention, like, the pause there. That was a wonderful moment of discovery, possibly, or reflection. And you don't usually get that in an argument or a debate, certainly not on a stage where people are watching. So that wasn't meant to embarrass Hadi or anything like that, or to, like, haha, look, he can't answer the question. No, we're cheering along with you at that moment, quietly, of course, because we don't want to throw you off. But that's the moment of introspection and reflection that we're really hoping to achieve in these conversations, because that's usually the beginning of belief reflection and revision, is uncertainty and questioning and wonder. And we watch that happen right here. It's good stuff.
Yeah, pregnant pauses are a positive thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So in my club, I usually tell people, we embrace the silence. So when people finish making their statement or sharing their ideas and nobody answers, I tell them, don't feel uncomfortable, because we allow those silences to happen. And we, whether we're reflecting on it or taking rest. So people don't feel, they have to constantly fill in the silence and respond, or feel awkward because what they've said didn't get a response. So I think we completely resonate with that. So we have Krishna. Yeah, welcome, Krishna.
That's hilarious. Hari Krishna, amazing.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And this is like one of the best rooms I've been to. Like, wow, it's I love listening. And Harry, it's great to hear your thoughts as well. Very progressive, I feel. I was thinking I'd love to take part in it. Like, if I could be like in Harry's position, in another room sometime, and just question my beliefs. I mean, I do it myself, but it's always got bias in it if you do it to yourself.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you got the room here with Alfonso's room. This might be a good time to mention the different communities that we have for people who are interested in street epistemology, to learn it, practice it, but also go there if you want to have somebody respectfully challenge your views in this way. You can. There's almost daily now sessions. I don't know the exact days, but you can go to the Discord server that we have, and there are people from around the world who are facilitating practice sessions where it's exactly what we just did on a variety of different topics. So that would be a good place to go.
I think one 3-hour session has already been done this morning on Discord, and I think another one is coming up later today. So I highly recommend the SE Discord.
Oh, by the way, the Street Epistemology Twitter recently tweeted a list of the steps, basically guidelines essentially of how to do SE. It really shouldn't be a rote, rigid, step-by-step thing. That's insincere, and that's like, you're going to get into trouble if you think that your conversation is going to go in a step-by-step order, but it will give you the basics to get comfortable enough to get started with this so that you can eventually find your own style.
Hey, Anthony, is streetepistemology.com still kind of your go-to resource for everyone? If you had to name one, would that be the first place you'd want people to go to?
The site to go to find anything related, communities, resources. We now have a book list, communities. Yeah, that's the place to go to find everything related to SE. If this is your first exposure to it, then I would suggest going there. Or if you want to, or go right to YouTube, search for Street Epistemology and your favorite topic, and then start watching. You'll get hooked. Because it's really cool to watch people. Like, we didn't have the benefit of seeing Hadi's expressions in body language, and in the videos you often get that. It's really cool to see.
Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Give me 1 second, Andy. So we have reached the time limit, and I'm happy to continue as long as anybody wants to stay. I'm not sure if you guys have previous commitments, but I just wanted to let you know that it is 5 p.m. It's like 2 hours since the room started. Yeah, just any thoughts?
I'm willing to stay. I've got plenty of coffee here, so I'm good.
Wonderful.
1 or 2 more questions.
Anthony and Reid?
Yeah, I could stay for 1 or 2, and then I'm going to get going. I've got some family.
Okay, is it okay if I ask a quick question?
Well,
it's my understanding that street epistemology questions like the very foundation that people place their beliefs on, right? Because you're asking like layered questions until you reach that foundation, and then they either realize there's a solid foundation or there is no solid foundation. So it can be applied to any sort of like nonsensical belief, right? Not just whether they're like religious or whatever. Because I'm certainly not out to destroy anybody, and I'm certainly not out to hurt people's feelings, that kind of thing. But that's my basic question. Thank you.
Yeah, good question. Yeah, we are interested not so much in the claim itself or the reasons. Those are important, but it's the foundation that's propping it all up, which is the epistemology. It's the how did you verify that that's a good reason for thinking that something is true to a very high degree of confidence, or 75% or 2%. It doesn't even matter your confidence. But yeah, we're trying to drive to the foundation, and it doesn't really matter the claim as long as it's a fact claim about reality. Although you can use this for personal opinions and preferences. Street epistemology, and it doesn't matter what was the word you used, like crazy or wild. Like, it doesn't even matter the nature of the claim as long as it's a fact claim about reality. Then you could probably use this approach to get to the bottom of it.
My wording was nonsensical claim.
Nonsensical.
A claim which doesn't make sense.
Well,
it's not based in reason.
Yeah. However, it likely makes sense to them, otherwise they wouldn't be holding it. So while you may think it's a nonsensical claim, they think it's true. And it's really important to set aside our own presumptions about them or their view, because that can get in the way of making progress with them. And you can even say, like, they might even like blatantly ask you, do you think that this is a nonsensical belief? And I would advise you to be honest with them. just keep in mind that the manner with which you reveal your position could it could be really good for your conversation, or it could be really bad. Just be careful how you do it.
Yeah. Like I don't want to. I don't have any intention of making anyone look stupid or anything like that. I'd like to encourage a world that thinks more reasonably, in line with logic.
That's great. I would lead with that. Like, this is my motivation for wanting to talk with you. Like, I'm amazed that you have this view. I'm perplexed in a way. Like, can you help me understand how you got there? And if you didn't insult them, you built some rapport. Sometimes you might consume a little bit of rapport because you may have said something that they found offensive. But because you've done things prior to that have built trust, they might be willing to give you a pass. It's kind of a give and take to find that right balance of, I want to be upfront with you, but I also don't want to make you guarded because you see me as an enemy. I don't want you. I want this to be a collaborative effort, even though I might disagree with you.
So, I mean,
can I ask my question now? Sorry.
I just wanted to report back, kind of chime in with the last point and finish what I was wanting to contribute, was that I think this is such a great room in terms of watching or listening to Reid kind of question Harry and Harry respond, and I like it's something that's so needed. It just generally in the world without like the attachment to the ego, and Harry did that so well, and Reid did that so well without kind of even poking at the ego or asking questions from the ego or even trying to answer. And I really appreciate the room. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, I apologize. I was distracted for a little bit while you were doing the questioning, so I might have missed this. But I don't think you went into. So if the claim is true, then wouldn't that undercut the theory of evolution, since we seem to be related to ancestors going all the way back to an original common ancestor, or would the claim be that the people created the original ancestor and then somehow directed the evolution up to us? Was there a reason you didn't emphasize that point?
Yeah, I did try to clarify at one point. Was this a different animal species or a population that was brought here by the other intelligent species, or did they just modify what was already there? And I didn't ask explicitly, is this incompatible with our current theory of evolution? I probably could have. Ideally, I don't want to bring in concepts that have not been spoken about, but it was kind of implied. So it's a gray area. I could have.
Can I slowly sliding in the space? Can I slightly chime in? Sorry.
Sure.
Yeah. Yes, please.
Sure. So I actually don't have any comment. Just wanted to mention, I'm seeing Anthony Magnabosco here. So I'm actually finding it very difficult to see you in person in Clubhouse. The only thing I can say is I'm a huge fan of yours. I watched probably every single video. In terms of the way I speak, I try to wholeheartedly copy your style of questioning, trying to understand the epistemological aspect of what I understand, what others understand, being authentic. But you have had I usually don't say it, but you have had a significant impact on the way I think, the way I try to change myself in my way of thinking and when engaging with others. So thank you very much. I'm done.
That's very motivating to hear. Thank you. Really appreciate that.
Yeah. So, Reid, did you say you could stay a little longer, or are you also otherwise engaged?
I did want to meet up with a friend in Santa Monica pretty soon, so I think I do need to wrap it up.
Okay, no problem.
2 hours, but this is really cool. And There are communities out there where this is happening almost daily, like in the SE server. Reddit is very active. The YouTube channels.
Yeah.
You can get your SE fix elsewhere,
Yeah.
than here.
So I'm happy to stay with David and perhaps get some people to practice, because that was part of the idea, but we didn't. I think these things take time, and that's, I think, one of the reasons I often lose listeners, because I try to give this very thoughtful approach, but I think it's a good investment to make. So yeah, I mean, you just let us know, Anthony and Reid, whenever you need to take off. If you want to say, I mean, if you need to go now, or otherwise we can just stay till you guys let us know. I think Dan had a question.
Yeah, I saw Dan just pop up, so maybe we take one more question, and then I'll have to go.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to speak. I appreciate that. I'll make it very quick. First off, want to congratulate Hari for getting up there and participating and being the one to have the experiment done on him. So I know that takes a lot of courage, but this was really beautiful to listen to, and I appreciated the comments I heard. One thing that kind of came to mind, and I was listening to this, was it seems to me that maybe a good framework for thinking it, and I'm new to SE, but it seems like a good framework of sort of approaching the space would be almost questioning the person in the way of, let's assume that they know something that I don't know, and I'm about to learn a great lesson and have something revealed to me. What would be the questions that would be sort of next on my research list, and let's explore this together in a way and see where it goes. Now, in the back of your mind, maybe you kind of have a preconceived idea where you think it's going to go, but I'm just curious what the more experienced SE folks in this room would respond to that way of thinking. Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, we're developing, this reminds me of the course that we're developing for Street Epistemology, and we have 20 some modules, and module 7 is on building rapport, and it's like 30 pages long. And we're looking for testers, by the way. Go to the SE website and just drill around and you'll find the thing about it. But I think I just lost my, that's the kind of mentality or attitude that I think is really important. There's one of the modules is having the right mindset. And one of those recommendations, I think, is trying to approach your conversation partner, even if they have a belief you think it's despicable and you think that they're a horrible person because they have it. You probably can still learn something about why they're so convinced that it's true. And that could be really revealing. It'd be like, they had this really intense personal experience and now they think it's true. I have a better, you can still learn something from people even though you disagree with them, and opening yourself up to that learning part of it is a really big part of the SE mindset. So yeah, absolutely. That's great advice.
Totally agree.
So you mentioned you're going to start a course on this. Can you?
Yeah, we started it. We started developing it in October of 2020. I think we've been working on it, and it is a self-directed course that's being assembled by people like myself and Reid, who are really familiar with SE from around the world. So we're taking everything that we've learned over the last 7 or 8 years since the books have come out, and our real world experience of using the approach, like what seems to work and what seems to not work, and what exactly is SE and where is this going, and what is the right mindset to have when you encounter somebody that you want to have a discussion about, a sensitive topic on. So we're putting all that stuff down, and it will likely be free, where people can take it and teach yourselves how to do this at your own leisure. Because you can watch videos on how to do that. You can come to events like this, but we wanted to have something off the shelf where at your, in the privacy of your own home, you can go and take this course and teach yourself how to do this. So that's what's coming. It's going to be robust.
Can I ask, Anthony? You and me, we were talking a couple of months ago, and I was asking you how the course is going, and I remember you had an inclination to make it a university course. Is this something that is still in the mindset?
Okay, good question. So at the moment, we're designing the course to be self-directed, but all of the content of the course will be stored in a repository that could be served up in different ways. So we're thinking ultimately the front end of the course material can be a self-directed course, something that an instructor could possibly download and present to a classroom, or maybe something that you use a web app and you go through at your leisure and do it. Ultimately, there will be different ways of presenting the materials, but right now we're just simply working to get it all down in a self-directed way. But ultimately, I'd love to see it morph.
Yeah, because it would be interesting to take it in the realms of academics, to make an academic course out of it, an international academic course. I live in Sweden, but academia in this, if we speak about epistemology, it should be universal, right?
And that's only one avenue.
It would be very interesting to developing that.
Mm-hmm. We'd like to see it move into academia, government, and business. So theoretically, in 5 years, 3 years, 2 years, maybe 6 months, who knows? There could be consultants running around knocking on businesses' doors and corporations saying, I'd love to teach you this method so that your HR department is going to have better conversations with your employees when there's disputes or something. Like we're at the very beginning stages of this thing, and I think it will ultimately work its way into those different areas.
Yeah, or the employers can break the IR people.
Right.
Yeah, so
I see it would be great to just bring out, like, when you're interviewing candidates, like, how do you see this problem that we're facing? How would you fix it? You know, what would increase your confidence? Blah, blah, blah. Like, I think there's value in this approach.
So, Anthony, the value in the approach is so deep. This kind of work needs to be done even at school level, so that children can start learning how to reason and navigate, right? Truth tables. Do you know how many people don't know what truth tables are? And even with logic, just general logic, it seems like it's just considered to be computer language and not the actual, the base kind of innate ability of logic that underpins math and its applications, and just it seems to be considered to be distinct from creativity, and actually we need logic even in creativity. So it being logic being kind of intrinsically linked to epistemology and determining what we how we know what we know, it's just not even a considered thought. It's just so alien even to most people. It's crazy. But if that was kind of pushed in as children are growing up, I believe I've had this conversation a few times and tweeted about it, that it needs to be put into education at a very at kindergarten, and in some way in terms of the questioning or the way that education's navigated to it, imply or apply it as within its teaching methods. So there was this other room, I think, philosophy for children, and I would try and implement this kind of reasoning and approach with children even. It's profound, it's such a profound thing to do, and so needed.
I think most people do use it with their kids here and there, but at some point we send them off to school maybe, and we think the school will take care of it. It doesn't seem like they're teaching critical thinking or logic, but we use it with our kids. Think of a situation, let's say maybe you're babysitting or you have kids yourself, and one of the kids thinks there's a monster under the bed. You're probably not going to say, if you're frustrated enough, you might just say, get into bed, go to sleep. But generally we engage with them. You think that there's a monster under the bed? Well, why would you think that, sweetie? Well, because I heard this noise. Well, we would likely engage with them in a really loving, respectful way to help them think about what it is that's troubling them in this case. So we can do it.
Yeah.
We can do it with kids, but something happens in our culture where I don't know if we think it's too tough or people just won't be interested in it, but it's probably one of the best things that we can teach to young people early on.
Totally.
I wish we did it more.
Totally. I think it's partially employed, and that's again pretty much the same as not applying it. So because it's like halfway there, and it kind of tends to stop at a point of convenience, and generally that's the problem.
And then we don't continue it either. So
exactly.
like when somebody says, well, it's my truth that this is the case, or I just believe it's the case and I don't care if I have any good reasons for it. Like, people will make these declarative statements and we don't push back on it. And now we have a tool for pushing back on it in a really respectful, challenging, loving way. So that's why this approach is really good. We don't have to just roll our eyes or say, well, that's not a battle that I want to get into at this point. No, you can engage with them now. Like, we have a tool for this. We just need to get people comfortable using it. And that's why we're here, to promote it and share it with you and demonstrate it to you and answer your questions. And that's why we have volunteers from around the world putting in countless hours to put together materials for us to learn this.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. I mean, it can help break through mental prisons, right, of our own, and limiting beliefs and cognitive dissonance.
Prisons that we may not even know that we're in. We may not even be aware of it. Like, everything's going fine.
I think most of us are in that mental prison, and we don't even know.
So are we. Reid and I and everyone here. Like, we're not exempt from it because we have the truth and we have this wonderful tool. Like, no, I'm nearly certain we're very misled on lots of things. We're just waiting for somebody to challenge us on it.
Yeah, and I love that, because it's almost becomes a sport, and a sport that we can like remove ourselves from. I mean, our ego, and just be like, okay, how do we get to the goal of the game is to get to the truth, you know. So it doesn't really matter if we're wrong. Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's wrong. It's just about finding out how wrong or how unjustified, or if it's justified, to get to the truth. Yeah.
But it's also a challenge to not lie down flat. Again, it's also developing a system of how to push back. I think it's also important to just not. This is what I have problems with. I tend to be too aggressive when I talk to religious people. It's very difficult to find this fine tuning between asking an eloquent question to them and keeping your calm when they start preaching.
That's the cool thing about this, though, is that your biggest challenge, and I have to go after this, but your biggest challenge to getting good at SE is all the baggage that you yourself bring to it. So if you can recognize it and try to correct for it, and then you learn this approach, you're going to excel at it. And then if you have a good open conversation partner who's honestly reflecting, like we saw with Hadi, like, that just makes it gold. But a big part of this is your own baggage.
Yeah, I agree completely. It's just it's just a frustration sometimes that gets to you. But yeah, thanks.
Oh, well, Lucas, I would love if you could like cross-examine me, because I'm a complete. Well, I believe in God. So
sure.
You could cross-examine me.
That's probably my cue
now.
So I'm going to go. But
I press the follow button there. Please now.
Thanks again, Alfonso, for the invite. This is fun.
Yeah, thanks for having us here. There is a blog post, how to stay calm and focused when doing street epistemology, so you may want to check that out too. Be sure to check out the tip sheet on the Street Epistemology Twitter, and then just go to the website to find our stuff and other people who are doing this.
Thanks so much, Anthony and Reid.
Absolutely. David,
Yes,
Alfonso, everyone, this is wonderful. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, everybody,
Thank you.
remember to follow the Street Epistemology Club on Clubhouse, and hopefully we'll be able to have this conversation, and they'll host it for us next time. We're trying to boost that channel. We want that club. We want them to, grow as well, because I think the value they're bringing to all social media and other areas of our life is amazing. So thank you so much, everybody. Just follow that club, follow Anthony, Reid, and David, and anyone else who you might have found interesting on the stage. David and I will stay. I'll be learning from David and perhaps try to put it to practice myself. I have already with the club. Like I said, we're restructuring. We're trying to make it a more welcoming space for theists and people from all walks of life who are willing to engage in these critical conversations. So thank you so much again, Anthony and Reid.
Thank you. Have a great day.